Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the second issue of the Spinner Rack, the most positive show in comics. Think of it as drawn and quartered for people who can't draw. Think of it as a good time. Just don't bring any drama in here. And we got some cool stuff today. I'm going to talk about my favorite Thor comic, try to tie it into some of the rumors we've heard about Thor 4. And we got a bunch of other cool stuff, some classic X-Men, Ant-Man. Looks like we got some Captain America in here. Pickles is not going to talk about the Hulk, unfortunately. He's talking about some kind of watercolored mess that has the Joker in here. I can't wait to hear about that. And it looks like Deadpool, too. But with that said, how's everyone doing tonight?
No, good. Fantastic.
Good. Yeah, I got Skinny here from the Needle Mover Society. I got Shinobi Raccoon. How you doing tonight?
Good.
Good. Pickles. You might know him from Vestry.
Hello, chaps.
Horatius Kokels and MK
G'day,
Geiger.
Howdy.
Yeah, but this show is primarily just celebrating comics. It's primarily just staying positive about things. If you want to get away from the drama, all we're talking about here is comic books, our favorite stuff, and just celebrating the big two. I'll never give them up because those characters, were my childhood, and couldn't be more excited just to sit here and bullshit about it. But with that being said, I think Skinny is going to go first. Where are you at on this thing? Is this you?
Yeah.
Tell us about your thing.
I wanted to talk about Nick Spencer's run on Ant-Man, which went on for, I want to say, 13 issues, maybe throwing an annual in there. It's fantastic. Like, a lot of people give Nick Spencer a lot of grief with the Hail Hydra Captain America thing.
Yeah, almost rightfully so, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. But I just think he was the wrong person to be writing Captain America, because this dude, when it comes to, comedy and stuff like that, he's solid as a rock. There's one instance where, I don't know. There's so much in this run that I love. I have a lot of attachment to it, too, because, the entire run is basically Scott Lang trying to make things better for himself so he can see his daughter. And
you say Scott Lang? Scott Lang.
Yeah, Scott Lang.
Scott Lang.
Scott Lang. Scott Lang.
Scott. And he was what, the second or third Ant-Man?
Second.
Second?
Because the original was Hank Pym, then you had Scott Lang, and then I can't remember the guy's name, but it's the one, I think Eric Powell wrote it or something like that.
Oh. So there were 3 Ant-Men?
Yeah, because you had the what the hell was it called? But it's more of a, what do they call it? A deconstruction.
Right. I remember Hank Pym, and then the movie introduced me to Scott Lang.
Yeah. Yeah, Scott Lang's the thief. At least in this one, his origin is that his daughter had a heart disease, and he had to go kidnap this doctor to heal her, and in doing so, he had to get the Ant-Man suit or something along those lines.
And the third Ant-Man was Eric O'Grady.
Yeah, you got it. And he used his suit so he could spy on naked ladies showering.
Scott Lang did?
No, O'Grady did.
O'Grady.
Yeah, he was like a sleazeball SHIELD agent who got his hands on the suit, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe.
Yeah,
right.
But Nick Spencer's run on Ant-Man is just full of heart. It gets really interesting because he presented a lot of good ideas too. Because the villains for Ant-Man here is actually an app, which is called Hinch, where any villain can just basically put out a random hit on any hero, and multiple villains will respond to it and try to take them out without them even knowing. And it's kind of funny because Scott Lang's just doing his thing, trying to mind his own business, and out of nowhere, all these villains he hasn't seen in years just start popping up out of nowhere trying to take him out. But they do it in a very funny and interesting way, though. And I really like the idea that the villain ended up making an app called Hinch.
That's funny.
I thought it was great, but this run is comedy gold though, and it's got a lot of heart too. Like there's this one touching moment where he's hanging out with his daughter. He's basically homeless, so he has like some couches and whatnot from like a dollhouse, and his daughter always wants to see that movie Battle Royale with the kids killing each other and shit.
Oh yeah.
So what he ends up doing is he just shrinks them both down to sit on this like dollhouse couch, and they watch it on the big screen, which is just a smartphone leaning up against the rock.
That's funny.
Yeah. But that's it for me, pretty much. I mean, if y'all want me to go more in depth, I can.
Well,
got the whole
if I only enjoyed the Ant-Man movies, is this a good place to start with the character?
Fuck yes.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and more yes.
Why though?
Well, I mean, it's just really good, and it matches it perfectly. The humor's there from the movie, everything.
Would you say the movie took a lot of stuff from this run?
No, none
No.
whatsoever.
Really?
Interesting.
Which is a good thing because they did try to adapt the movie into a comic. Let's undo the drawer right here. I still want to wipe my ass with this thing because I'm
Why?
pissed off. Because it's called Ant-Man and Wasp Prelude. So you're thinking, when I bought this, I thought, oh, well, this is kind of going like, but going to tell some shit going down between the first and the second movie, right?
Right.
Wrong. It's a retelling of the first movie.
Really?
It's not even a prelude. It's just Ant-Man, the adaptation.
That's weird.
And that pissed me off because, like, I love Ant-Man. And I love the movies, too.
I was gonna say, so you really like the movie? I think the movies were great. The Ant-Man films were great.
Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of them. Like, I give Planet Hulk a lot of shit for turning, a genocide into a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Or not Planet Hulk. Fucking
Ragnarok.
Because it was a mix of Planet Hulk and Ragnarok. I thought that was a terrible movie.
Yeah, I was disappointed with that too. You don't have stakes that grand and then wreck it with humor that just doesn't belong.
And
The typical Marvel humor.
The humor was predictable.
It was. And they also turned Thor into just a bumbling idiot. Like, I know he's not the smartest guy in the world.
But come on.
But really, he's not the most retarded guy in the world.
Yeah.
But he is in that movie. Woo!
He's even worse in Endgame.
Yeah.
I've seen Endgame twice, and I still don't remember, like, jack shit from that movie.
Not even Fat Thor?
No. The only thing I remember is Hippie Hulk, because that was just so fucking cringe.
No, let me take that back. There's Fat Thor, and then there's that really awesome moment where Captain America goes toe to toe with Thanos with the hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I liked Wanda going up against Thanos. I mean, that was like pure, like Wanda at her top level, and she could have almost killed him.
It kind of pissed me off that Hulk didn't get like a round 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, they turned it. And instead they have him
burn his arm.
the two. And they had it's like, oh, we're gonna take our strongest guy to picture by burning up his arm.
Let's see. We got a question here. The healing powers of Shrapcan. What's he talking about?
Who?
Who's Shrapcan? 6.
I never heard that one.
I don't know what he's talking about. 6. Explain yourself, please.
I don't think there is any explanation.
I don't think there is either. I think he's asking you, though, Milk.
I don't know.
Back to Ragnarok, that was just...
Yeah.
It was as if they took the Anne Frank story and made it into comedy and called it Toys in the Attic.
But doesn't the Hulk's healing factor rival that of Wolverine? So why didn't his arm heal up in time for the fight?
Right.
Well, apparently they're replacing his arm in She-Hulk with a robotic arm, which is just really stupid.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that at all.
I remember the panels where the Hulk had his muscles and flesh torn from his body And like
Ouch.
2 panels later, he had regenerated it all.
Yeah.
And, like I've even got was it Joe Kelly Deadpool where he faces off against Hulk and basically just impales him on
Mhm.
this huge sharp ass pipe, and Hulk's just good as rain, right as rain, man. He really didn't affect him at all.
Well, in the movies, they've got Hulk's power ratings so screwed up, and same thing with Captain Marvel. I mean, it's all the power levels are all screwed up, and
I don't think anyone in the writing department understands how power scaling works.
No.
So they just throw random crap in just for convenience of that part of the plot.
I mean, Captain Marvel, she went through Thanos' warship, and it's like, okay, that's not a Kree ship. That's Thanos' super ship, and she just went through it like butter. And it's like,
Right.
you know, I mean, I thought the scene was great when he went to headbutt her, and she just kind of looked at him, but then he pulls the space stone out and blasts her with it. Like, well, if she could have withstood a headbutt where he had all the stones in his hand, taking the space stone out or whatever and blasting her with it was just like, what?
Why didn't he just use like the reality stone to turn into a baby or something?
Right. You know, I'm hoping. I've heard the rumors that they're for the second Captain Marvel film that Rogue's going to show up in it.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, let's take that back to comics. One thing I discovered hearing about that angle was that Carol Danvers in the comics ran into Rogue and lost her powers to her. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, Rogue held on to her for too long, and she put her in a coma for like decades.
Right.
And she was stuck with her powers.
And what people don't get is that Mystique actually, some people, newer people, don't get that Mystique actually started out in Captain Marvel books and not X-Men books. She was the main villain for Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel, and she had Destiny had told her that Rogue needed to attack Carol or whatever, and then that's when Rogue's powers went haywire. So, which is actually funny because it leads into the run of the books that I like that I put on the Twitter thing.
Yeah. And this was when Carol Danvers was still wearing like the swimming suit costume, I guess.
But she was Miss Marvel.
Yes,
Miss Marvel.
Yep.
When she was actually likable.
Well,
was she?
She was an interesting, like, she had amnesia, and originally, and she was still always a feminist. You know, I mean, she was always arguing with J. Jonah Jameson, and the fact that she would tell him that, I was, a fighter pilot or whatever. So, but yeah, I don't know if she was all, I liked her back then.
Yeah, when I was reading comics, she was still somewhere in between comatose state and one of her other personas.
She went from Miss Marvel to Binary, and then from Binary to Warbird,
Mm-hmm.
and then Marvel.
Yeah, because when I was reading them, Rogue still had her powers. Rogue was still able to fly, and she was as strong as her, and she could shrug off blows like the Juggernaut.
Who Rogue?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think that because in like one of the X-Men Volume 2 was with Jim Lee and Chris Claremont. Rogue actually took a rocket launcher to the face, and she was just flying.
Yeah. And she's a she would be considered a Mary Sue nowadays.
Right.
Because she can do everything.
Rogue. Let's see. Geiger, you wanted to go next, I think?
Sure. Pick up the X-Men Yeah, X-Men 171 and stuff. 173.
173.
Yeah.
Is it this one? So this is the brown and yellow costume from Wolverine, right?
Yep, that one right there. That's the X-Men. But there's like
My favorite costume of all time.
Yeah,
Really?
I loved Rogue at this with this look,
Yeah.
with the really shorter hair, with the one streak.
Mhm.
This is one of my favorite runs because partly it's the introduction of Rogue into the X-Men. She appears in the X-Men as 171, and then right as soon as she appears, they have to go to Japan, and her and Wolverine end up teaming together while they're in Japan and to fight Lady Viper and the Silver Samurai and a bunch of ninjas. And it's one of the if you go to one of the other links I put in on this, I put in a great fight scene between
This one?
Yeah, there's a fight scene someplace in here that I put it.
See, this is we were talking about this, I think, earlier on another show where manga has a lot better fight scenes than American comics. But American comics can have great fight scenes, but it seems more like there's always like a setup and like the resolution real quick in them.
This there's a whole section of the book where it's just Wolverine and Silver Samurai just beating the crap out of each other.
Any dialogue or anything?
No, this is that like the right there. The color scene is there is no dialogue in the page for that fight.
Wow. Okay.
And then what happens is, I'm not going to spoil anything because I'm sure everybody's kind of read the book. But
is this a Claremont?
Yeah, it's a Claremont run. Yeah.
Okay.
And Lady Viper's about to shoot Wolverine, and Rogue sees it, and she flies towards him, pushes Wolverine out of the way, and takes the hit. And now she's dying, and then Wolverine, is like, you didn't have to do that for me. She's like, well, whatever, I had to. And then he's like, he says, well, you're not going to die. And he ends up kissing her to give her his healing power so that she can recover. But that the 171 to 173 it's basically when I like Rogue is one of my favorite characters, and I like it from 171 on. She's always been, and it's not. I think for me, it's like at the time when I collected it, she reminded me of a person who was out of place because when she joined the team, she was that stranger, and I always moved around a lot in life. So with my parents, so we was always like making new friends and stuff like that. So
Right.
it was a very like the fish out of water and an outcast type thing. So and plus she looked cute.
Well, can't argue with that.
Right.
Well, it's Rogue.
Exactly. So yeah, I would recommend.
The only other female character in Marvel I would put above Rogue as far as sexes would probably somewhere between Psylocke and Mary Jane, but yeah.
For sexiness, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary Jane's hard to argue with, honestly.
I would like there's some drawings of Scarlet Witch that I really like.
We'll save that for the swimsuit episode we did.
Yeah. You just had a Scarlet Witch. Still triggers a lot of very bad House of M flashbacks.
Yeah.
Was that not a very interesting or a very good story?
Let me put it to you this way: I hold that story responsible for a lot of bad things that happen afterwards.
What about Scarlet Witch in the Ultimate Universe, though?
Where she was in an incestuous relationship with Quicksilver.
Yep.
We don't talk about that.
See, I like House of M because it was basically her going nuts and all that. So it wasn't that. I don't think it was that bad, but I think I agree with you that there was stuff that came afterwards of it that was kind of messed up.
I mean, yeah, like let's see, all the teams started fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine stopped being an interesting character because he remembered everything.
Mm-hmm. The yeah, that's the scene where he gives her his healing power.
Kiss me, my surrogate daughter. It's the only way.
Well, let's see. At this point, he's already had Kitty, so yeah.
Right.
What do you mean? Already had Kitty?
Well,
Right?
he connects with a lot of teenagers.
What do you mean connects?
Basically, he fucks anybody that Cyclops looks at with slight intrigue.
He's trying to cuckold them.
He has been trying to crush on Jean for like the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that famous meme of Wolverine holding the picture comes from.
Yep.
From the animated show.
Yep.
Well, there was also in the new X-Men comics, the Bryant the Hickman stuff.
Yeah.
He showed a floor plan of where Wolverine, Scott, and Jean all live, and Wolverine's on one side, Cyclops is on the other side, and Jean's in the middle, has the middle room, and they both have doors that go to her room. Everybody's like, "Man, what's going on there?"
Well,
Wolverine and Jean do get married in the Age of Apocalypse universe.
Mm-hmm.
doesn't Wolverine always sleep with Storm though?
Well, maybe lately, I don't know, but it seems like he goes between these Jean and Storm phases.
Yeah.
If Mariko was still alive, he'd probably try to get back together with her, but
I'm surprised he didn't try Daniel Proudstar, from the New Mutants. But
I'm surprised he hadn't tried anything with Emma.
no, that's Scott's main one now.
That hadn't stopped him from hitting on Jean every chance he got.
Right. But I have to say, I like Jean and the X-Men, the Apocalypse thing. He looked pretty cool in there.
But yeah, not to mention there's a scene where they're going. Not to mention there's a scene where the X-Men are going through Wolverine's head and opening all these doors, and Emma finds this one door with women I have to sleep with before I die or something. She opens the door. She finds everything. Everybody. She finds Jean and a bunch of other women and herself, and she's like, I need to die.
Not a chance to the old man.
That was hilarious.
So I've always heard about this Chris Claremont guy. I heard that he was so good that Marvel was basically like, we're going to pay you to not write for anybody else.
Yeah, well, let me put it to you this way: every single adaptation, every single adaptation from the movies to the cartoons, they were all from Claremont.
Right?
Really?
Yeah. He has some great runs, and then the part of his problem is he gets too convoluted with his history of the characters and what's going on. And what happens is he would start something just 10 issues ago and just starting to touch on it, 10 issues later. And what happens was, I think the threads kind of dangle out there. So what happened was other writers came on and didn't know where he was really going with the stuff.
Yeah. Was Inferno Claremont too?
No, that was after, because it wasn't. No, wait a minute. Inferno, was that after Jim Lee's run?
No. I don't think so. This was when when the original X-Men got back together, and Jean and Scott were getting back together, and Madeline Pryor, who was a clone of Jean,
right?
Who was a clone of Jean. Jean had had already married Cyclops and had Cable at that point, and she went completely insane and became the Goblin Queen.
Yeah,
And
he
then
was involved in that. Yes.
And then they tossed his ass into the future, right?
Yeah, because techno-organic virus. That's why he has that cyber. That's why he has that fake arm and fake leg.
Right, but he's supposedly like one of the more powerful mutants if he wasn't worried about that, right?
Well, he would if his mental powers weren't fighting off that virus the whole time.
Cable.
I mean, yeah, you know how powerful Nate Gray is.
Yeah,
that would be Cable if he didn't have that techno-organic virus.
Is that right?
Yep. He would technically be a Omega power.
But instead, he just has these cool guns and robot arm and stuff.
Yeah, because he can't use his mental power to their fullest.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's this Malice Mistress of Hate thing you got up here, Geiger?
That is Fantastic Four Volume 1, 280 to like 282. It's John Byrne run, and basically Hatemonger and the entity known as Malice manipulate and take over Sue Storm, and she becomes Malice.
What is this, like late 70s, early 80s?
80s.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say with that spiky hair kind of thing, that was kind of like the style back then.
But yeah, it's another great run of, and I just brought it up because it's kind of interesting. It iconic look for, I think, to have a character that used to be so wholesome and turn her into this raving, hateful person. And just with everything's going on, I'm like, well, let me throw this in. I mean, it's the whole hate monger, everybody hate thing. And I was in the past, American Chavez, the one writer, I'm like, I don't understand why she created new white style supremacist characters, villains, when they have characters like Malice or they have Hate Monger, who that's what they do. they're designed to be, hateful and stuff like that. And from this, it leads right into them going into the micro universe.
Hold on. We got a comment here from Hate Watch. Knuckleheads need to discuss X-Men 2099. Hate Watch Radio. I'll post the link if you want to come in and talk about it, but you got to come to my thread here and drop something for us to check out, brother. Feel free. But I don't know shit about X-Men 2099. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, check us out, Cherry, if you want to add to the discussion. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Marvel had a bunch of 2099s. They had like Doom 2099, Ravage 2099, Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah, which is with Miguel something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never really paid attention to the 2099.
The only reason it's coming into awareness lately, I think, is the Into the Spider-Verse had
Right.
Easter egg, right?
Yep, the very end.
Yeah, that was neat.
And
Yeah.
Is this She-Hulk here in the bottom?
Yep, she was part of the Fantastic Four back then. They didn't have Ben Grimm, the Thing.
Well, if you're not on Twitter, just, I don't know, figure out some way to get it to us, man. We'll bring it up sometime. Punisher. Oh, somebody's getting a call.
Not me.
Hold on a minute.
But the Punisher 2099 was decent, and so was I liked Spider-Man 2099. Those were probably to me the best. I know a person that she loves Ghost Rider 2099. I'm like, shoot me. But yeah, X-Men 2099 was not that great. It was pretty bad.
Really?
I thought so.
I don't know. I have
Wrong number.
wrong number. I have a hard time with like the far out future stuff, especially when like the original characters.
Mhm.
Facebook page for the Spinner Rack. Well, we'll wait till we get some more viewers, but that'd be interesting. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah.
They're bringing back the 2099 stuff. There's a bunch of 2099 stuff coming back with Marvel right now.
That's what I'm told.
I think I've only picked up one of them.
Right.
It was a light week this week. I didn't pick up hardly anything.
The nearest comic shop to me is about an hour away.
Ouch. Mine's like
Yeah.
5 minutes down the road.
I haven't even been to it, and I don't plan to. I'd rather just either get it digital or Amazon it or something. And yeah, Anyway, yeah, so that's an interesting character. Let's see who's next. Pickles, you want to talk about the Joker? I guess.
Yeah.
Is this Jesus talking to Batman in this upper panel?
No, this is from the book Batman Arkham Asylum, A Serious Loss on a Serious Earth, written by Grant Morrison.
All right, now I'm going to sound like the comics idiot here. I'm just fine playing that role, but is this where they got the a lot of the storylines from the video game from?
You could say Arkham Asylum was inspired by it, but not necessarily like a direct adaptation. Basically, this book is a psychological horror, and it's basically Arkham, the Arkham inmates taking control of the prison, and Batman has to go through and what have you. And they said if Batman goes through, then they'll let go of the hostages that they have. So you come across these different characters like Mad Hatter and Iceman and stuff like that. And obviously, what stuck out to me the most about this was obviously the art. Because I'm going off nostalgia here.
Yeah.
Because this was the second book I ever read. So the thing I remember the most is the art. And apparently this is like one of the first DC comics that Grant Morrison wrote as well.
Really?
Yeah, because this book was in 1989.
Is that right?
Yeah. And basically, it also delves into the history of the Arkham house. It goes into the guy who founded it, and he was helping this guy, this criminal, try and get better. And I think he ended up killing his family. And the Arkham ended up going insane himself, I think.
Yeah, I remember that from the game. The name Arkham came from like a warden or something. Is that accurate?
Was it Amadeus Arkham? Is that Jeremiah Arkham?
I think it was Jeremiah.
But didn't they change that a bit in the Owls when that Arkham was one of the big rich people like the Waynes and the Kanes were? I thought they and the Cobblepotts and stuff like that.
Right.
I will say that this book, in my opinion, is quite experimental for a Big Two book. Certainly for the time, I guess. Because the art style is by a guy called Dave McKean. If you've never heard of him, he's a painter. And he usually does like these wacky, horrific kind of illustrations. So like you kind of get a mix of all different kind of arts. So you kind of come across a bit of psychedelic, a bit of high detailed art, black and white art that probably looks like it should be in a Sandman comic. This book has always stuck in my mind for 15 years now.
Well, I mean, I just took one look at this before we went live, and I was thinking, this is probably the most like, I think Zombie in the chat called it confrontational art, which is an interesting way to put it, but it's very, I don't even know how to express it. It's just like, you don't really get this every day.
You could look for one of the pages if you search under the title. It has some Anthony Daniel, not Anthony Daniels, Psycho. The movie Psycho, who played?
Oh, Gus Van Sant.
No, let me see if I can find it and put the link in the chat. Give me a second.
Yeah, Gus Van Sant. I brought that up because he did a remake of Psycho that was pretty much like shot for shot, exactly the same as the old movie.
Yeah, it was in the old movie. Anthony Hopkins, he has this scene where, and he drew a picture of painted a picture of Anthony Hopkins, or he's almost kind of like collaging the work together.
Mm-hmm.
McKean is.
Yeah.
I think it was in this book where, correct me if I'm wrong, where instead of Two-Face having a coin, they managed to get him to do it with a pack of cards.
A pack of cards?
Yeah, something like that. I think he ends up wetting himself. I could be talking about a totally different comic because I'm going off memory. Can anyone verify that?
All right, Kokels. Be right back. Okay, I'm going to bring in Zombie real quick. Kokels, hang out in the back.
All right.
Zombie.
Hello.
Hey, I really wanted to hear your thoughts on this Serious House thing.
Arkham Asylum, Serious House in a Serious World. And the psychiatrist treating the different villains is trying to use Jungian diversion therapy on them. So Two-Face goes from 2 choices with a coin to playing cards, so he has even more choices, and then the I Ching, so he has thousands of choices. But the net effect of it is that he can't make any decision at all, so he just keeps ending up wetting himself rather than going to the bathroom.
That's
And
all
the-
right.
And the Arkham guy tried to use benevolent therapy, but the person that he uses it on is this sex murderer who ends up tearing his daughter's head off and putting it in her dollhouse and so on. So Arkham himself goes insane and creates secret rooms and so on in the asylum. So the psychiatrist in the story, the Joker is actually almost a good guy, and the psychiatrist treating the supervillains is the bad guy.
Really?
Yeah. And the Joker pretends that he's blinded one of the nurses when he's on an open line before Batman goes in, and there's this like scritch of the nurse using a sharpened pencil to draw, and then a scream, and Joker pretends that he's blinded her with a sharpened pencil, but in fact he hasn't.
That's where the April Fool comes
And the
from.
psychiatrist is a woman, right? Is that? I think
There's
so.
a woman and a man, I'm pretty sure.
Because I know in one of the scenes, Batman goes to her and goes, "Give me the coin," because
Yeah.
to fix Two-Face, give me the coin, so I can hand it back to him, so he's back, released.
But it's all this Jungian psychological approach where they've failed to integrate the personalities of the supervillains. And there's a sort of mystical aspect where some of them, maybe it's just not possible to integrate them. Maybe they are actually archetypical, they're archetypes, and so they're resistant to integration in a normal psychological sense. But it's a very good graphic novel. When I first read it way back, I found it very disappointing because I really disliked the art. But rereading it as an older person, I enjoy it a lot more than Killing Joke.
Do you appreciate the art more now, or do you still have the
I do.
poor opinion of it?
No, I don't. I should have never had a poor opinion of its quality, although I did. But certainly, it's a lot more enjoyable when you've read a lot more European comics, or when you understand that it's an introduction of European comics into DC again. So something that would not be out of place in 2000 AD or whatever, bringing that into DC, now it's sort of old hat. But back then it was very confronting artwork and confronting an adult story. It deconstructs the Batman story as well, because instead of the Zorro going to see Zorro, in this one he's going to see Bambi, and he cries, and his father's telling him off for crying and not being a man, and that's the point at which the parents are murdered. So it provides a more realistic basis for Batman, which I don't think a lot of people would like.
It's not as romantic that way.
And not as manly, is it? You know, like he's a little boy, he's upset because of Bambi, and then he loses his parents. It's a lot more realistic, but it doesn't have that grandeur of the Zorro and, you know.
Zorro.
So it's not for everybody.
Yeah, it's a provocative imagery, I think you called it, and I couldn't agree more.
I think I liked it at a young age because I am European.
well, yeah, and like same with me with the 2000 AD stuff. If you grow up on 2000 AD, it's really not that big a deal, except that they're doing it to Batman. It's sort of par for the course for 2000 AD, really, especially in the later years. Much more adult.
And it was around the time Sienkiewicz was also painting for like Marvel and stuff like that as well in books.
Yeah.
Like, so a lot of people were, but I think this one might have been. No, I think Sienkiewicz was first before this one came, but it's but this one, Dave was much more stark than Sienkiewicz was, I think.
This one didn't seem to serve a particular almost house style, whereas a lot of the painted Marvel stuff was amplifying their existing sort of cheesecakey, swimsuity style. Whereas this one really was just like what the fuck? Like, I mean, it's about an insane asylum, and the artwork is I mean, it actually has a line in there that the Arkham guy says, "This was my first glimpse into the hidden world of dreams and symbols." And the artwork of Arkham Asylum graphic novel is Jungian. All of it is extremely confronting, but also dreamlike, symbolic. I suppose for some readers at the time it didn't land because it was somewhat unsatisfying, because it undermines Batman. It doesn't stand comparison at the time with Brian Bolland's artwork for Killing Joke, for example. Arkham Asylum, I don't think it was well liked at the time. And one of the reasons was you had a classic lineup of villains for Batman and a classic Batman. And rather than that, you got something that was very surreal and out there, and not giving you, like, at the time of the Killing Joke, you get this other version of the Joker, which now, I suppose, with obligatory Heath Ledger, obligatory, Joaquin Phoenix comparisons, now this would be the Joker of the current day. But back then, it was not. It was really not. And it made the Joker sexual. There was a lot of grown-up stuff in it that people weren't in the mood for, I think.
And
Hate Watch Radio asked about Garth Ennis in reference to is he considered a European writer where Americana is his main theme? I think that's interesting.
Well, I mean, you could almost consider him to be a French type writer or a New Wave writer, even though New Wave is now very old, because he writes these love letters to a certain version of America, which is sort of the French version of America. But in the process, he undermines the moral access of America, or refuses to accept that could be honestly held.
Well, you could say that with Neil Gaiman, though, too.
Yes.
Neil Gaiman writes America in a very idealized, romantic view as well. I think he's even said that he does.
Of a kind, but of a kind.
Right.
And they simplify the moral choices that Americans make, which no normal American probably would. I don't think any American writer does. Even David Lynch doesn't. They don't honor that one moral aspect of America, and that's how you can tell that they're not Americans. Really.
RQ was working at a comic shop at the time it came out, and it was not well liked. I think he's referring to Arkham Asylum.
Yeah,
that's pretty heady stuff, honestly.
Well, it was also, it didn't follow up to Killing Joke. It didn't follow up to what was going on in the comics.
Right.
And it went in a Vertigo direction and deconstructing Batman at a time when he actually probably didn't need to be deconstructed because he'd just been built up and was super popular. So to that extent, it didn't land. And the portrayal of the villains as adult perverts and kind of almost failures strips away the grandeur of the villains that Batman faces. So really, he comes off as being a kind of vindictive thug who's persecuting mentally ill people rather than it's one of those. Now that's old hat as well.
In the style that was written and painted and all that, a couple of years later, they had the Books of Magic, which had very similar, haphazard painted splash, type artwork as well, with a lot of heavy thoughts behind it.
Well, look, and speaking as an intellectual, there's a lot of heavy thought behind it. But I really genuinely think it does a disservice to four-color comics, classic old-fashioned comics, to say that they didn't.
I know. I agree. Yeah.
I think the Vertigo, angsty, teen, soul-searching comics wear it on their sleeve and put it out there, and almost simper and prance around all the deep thinking. But it would be difficult to suggest that Golden and Silver Age comics, in some cases at their best, didn't have a lot of deep thinking. I think it's the self-analytical angst, this sort of thing, and the Vertigo stuff in general.
Well,
it's almost faux deep because you're getting into this wearing black, sitting in the dark, listening to The Cure kind of stuff. That's just one type.
Right.
That's one type of being deep. But you can be deep in other ways.
But I think with the European writers coming into like DC Comics and stuff, they brought a different level of adult reading into the mainstream. Where before that, when they had Speedy was doing drugs, that was like everybody was up in arms about that when that first showed up, because it was too adult for the kids to read. Type thing. So I think at this level in the late 80s and early 90s, you were starting to get a more serious level that because of the people they were bringing in, that they were bringing Morris and Gaiman, they were bringing in comics to more of an adult level, even though it might have been the
Alan Moore too.
Right.
I do think, though, there was an agenda to be anti-American, anti a certain sort of American with all of this.
Yeah.
They wanted to deconstruct the moral certainty of America, and they had no right to do that. They were allowed to do it, but they had no right to do that. If they wanted that kind of moral ambiguity, they should have stuck with British comics, really. And to do it to American comics, when American comics... It's all very well to do that. I don't think anything's off limits, except... you have to respect authorial intent. And when you do it, one of the things with Speedy it was never that sort of character. So to update the character and in some ways violate the original character, you could make a case for that in the case of Speedy. You could say, well, he grew up and, things had to grow up. Okay. But if you do that to Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, the originals, the proper ones from the Golden Age,
right?
You violated authorial intent. It's like the Quite Sick. I mean, you could find it funny in an adult way, but the Quite Sick violation of cartoon characters by drawing them in porn or making something adult which was never meant to be adult. It's like when they deconstruct Captain America. If you deconstruct something like Captain America, you've got to do it in a certain way.
Right.
Because just because you may not have moral certainty, he does.
Right.
And just because you don't have the moral certainty to be a vigilante like Batman, Batman does. So when you have a character like Batman no longer being morally certain, he's not losing his moral certainty, you're losing yours.
Right.
And if you can't write him as the kind of absolutely sure of himself character that he is, there has to be a very good reason why you're not writing him that way. There has to be a real reason within the story. And a lot of the time with the British invasion, there really wasn't. They really were actually... even though they're very skilled writers in some cases, they were behaving more like hacks when they just used 2000 AD style storytelling in an American comic. The comics deserve better than that in some ways. And I say that as somebody who absolutely loves them
Right.
and British comics.
And I think
But,
that's why they might have succeeded with more like, Garth, right, doing Authority.
Yeah.
That was his baby, so he can deconstruct the archetypes for himself and not.
But it isn't just deconstruction. Some of it genuinely is just an attack on American moral certainty.
Right.
There's no deconstruction involved in making a nasty version of Captain America. It's just trite. It's trite and it's quite childish, adolescent. It really is just attacking American imperialism as they perceive it. But that's all well and good. But when everybody agrees with your version of politics, you're not being edgy by doing it, are you?
No.
You see what I mean? And Captain America is a Hydra agent now and all this sort of crap. We're seeing now what a world without an American strong presence leads to and what reasserting that strong presence leads to. That would be a hell of a lot more interesting to explore. But you never get that. And Arkham Asylum was an early version of a fundamental attack on the Batman character, like the stuff where he was going to see Bambi rather than Zorro. That was a very subversive act in this graphic novel, really. And so really was stripping away the grandeur of the supervillains.
Right.
They're just mentally ill people kind of thing. I mean,
Easy way to demonize somebody.
well, it's also an easy way to destroy the authorial intent and the basic premise of your whole damn comic book universe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, why costumes? Why costumes? And so then you end up with the awful, awful modern comics, which caused, the whole Comicsgate revolution. The comics that are just so terrible and stripped of their essentiality, stripped of the semiotics of comic books themselves.
Yeah.
If you don't want to write an American comic book in American style, fuck off and write something else.
Yeah.
Well, really.
No, I agree with you. 100%. That's why I think that's why Captain America, like you said, if Captain America isn't the guy that stands up for the truth, then what is he? He's just somebody in a costume swap at your whim, apparently.
Well, that was apparently their impression of him when they took the mantle away from him and gave it to Bucky, and then the Falcon.
Yeah.
See, I actually
the US agent period. I think that was deconstructive, but it was appropriate because it confronted the reality of American power projection versus American morality.
Or even when Wade did the Man Without a Country, where he wrote Captain America as standing up for his morals and turning his back on or being expelled from the country because he wouldn't do something because of his morals. I mean, it was a, like you said, it's a, and that's when I think he became Nomad shortly after that or something.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff.
U.S. agent. Yeah.
Unlike
it's appropriate.
Right. Unlike when they turned him into a Hydra agent. That one, the way they did that one, they didn't give a good reason why he would, beyond that he was brainwashed by Hydra from an early age. It's like,
and it's just obnoxious.
Yeah.
It's gratuitous and obnoxious. And all of this stuff was explored in the late 60s through to the mid 70s already anyway in their own Marvel comics. They don't even read the comics from the company that they're writing comics for.
Yeah, no. They don't.
Is that right?
All right. So if you were to have this
It's an
conversation,
absolute disaster.
so if you were to have this conversation with some Johnny come lately who brings up Superman Red Sun, where Superman was a Russian, how would you go about that discussion?
Well, that's considered an alternate universe, an Elseworld book.
Exactly.
And it's a what if book. What if he landed in communist Russia and became Superman there? That's, I don't think there's much to, I mean, he's still Superman. I mean, but he's just got the morals and the guidance from not American viewpoint, but from a Russian viewpoint, or an American viewpoint of what communist Russia was.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't the point of that story be, was Superman the product of his upbringing, or is that just who he was?
Right.
Yeah, that would be the only more mature element in it, really, is that he's sort of inherently good. And that becomes a kind of piece of trademark propaganda anyway, really. I mean, in one way it's obnoxious because it's saying, no, our character's so cool that it doesn't matter where he ends up, he's a Jesus-like figure with an innate moral goodness.
Right.
It doesn't make a lick of sense. And in the process undermines what Smallville did perfectly, which is he's an immigrant who arrives illegally in America. He absorbs the American values and becomes more American than native-born Americans. And in the process, a champion of goodness, because America is a good moral place.
Right.
End of, line under, that's it. If you don't like that, read something else.
And the opposite of that would be his cousin, who matured in the capsule. She would age and learn, so she would come out theoretically the same way wherever she landed.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. And the there's another Elseworlds graphic novel where Superman is raised on Apokolips by Darkseid. Yeah.
Huh.
And that's more just an alternate history, really. And I think those sort of stories are better when they're like that rather than when they're trying to beat you to death with a moral point, particularly when the people making the moral points are usually more or less spineless degenerates who've never achieved anything outside of their writing career. And their writing career itself has been in such a narrow field. And with, I mean, what in the British context called lovies, in other words, left-wingers who the media complex promotes above their pay grade. They've never had a hard fight even to get a writing gig in most cases. So these are people who are addicted to talking about struggle and morality. They've never struggled, and their morality is complicated by their hypocrisy. So it doesn't sound like a great fit to write comics to me, really. I mean, Alan Moore had his heart broken by America, but he grew up loving American comics. He wrote from a place of love, and once he got his heart broken, he stopped writing from a place of love. And it just became tosh, really.
Yep.
In my opinion, anyway, I just think it's tosh. Because it's the same story over and over again. How misguided America is and all the rest of it. It's worth pointing out with The Watchmen that whatever its strength as a comic book story, everything in it is historically accurate to the point of being a Mickey Mouse cartoon. and all this nonsense about how close we were to nuclear war in the mid-'80s. That's just Russian propaganda. That was run by the GRU as a deliberate attempt to try and get us to disarm. There's no reality to it at all. That's one of the most fantastical elements in The Watchmen. So things like Arkham Asylum as a curate's egg, as an independent one-off, I think it's beautiful looking, confronting and all the rest of it. But when they started trying to use that as the basis of the Batman mythopoeic construct, in other words, of the franchise, if you want to call it that, when you start trying to include those elements as a given for that character, it stops being an all-ages character, and it stops being a character that parents should be 100% comfortable with letting their children embrace. Because as they mature, loving a character, they'll start embracing the morality that character represents, won't they? Same with Spider-Man. So you need to be a little bit careful what you're letting your family members absorb now with these characters. And that's a crying shame. It's appalling.
What's Hate Watch Radio talking about here? The best story is Hitman issue 34. Is that something you guys are familiar with?
I haven't followed any of the Hitman.
Like Agent 47 from the games, or he's talking about something else?
No, there's a character in the DC universe called Hitman.
Okay.
And all that. I didn't read the Hitman stuff. Sorry.
Issue 1, Eisner.
Why doesn't he just come on and talk about it then?
Yeah, if he wants to get on here, I can pull out.
Let me see.
Well,
I'll put the link in the chat. Hey, Watch, if you want to come in here, there you go.
I've got a question. I was talking to my comic book, the guy that runs my comic book shop. And we were talking. We said Harley Quinn has to have some type of power for all the stuff that she does, because she was a doctor. She wasn't a fighter. But she's able to beat up all these people with just being dropped in a vat of acid to turn her skin white.
Yeah.
I thought she was a gymnast or something.
Yeah.
In the college, maybe.
Yeah, but how does but I mean from what I didn't they kind of Deadpool the crap out of her?
Well, yeah, they did.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to figure out. She's got really no superpowers,
Right.
and I doubt the Joker's going to be training her to fight.
Yeah.
But what's the Joker's superpower?
Well,
What's
exactly.
Batman's superpower?
Besides he's crazy. Other than horse
Well,
crap.
but we know Batman's trained to fight.
But even with training, Batman himself has become an impossible character.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Pete cheats.
it was just one of those things we were talking like going, well, you got a point there. I mean, she beats the hell out of Granny Goodness. It was.
But this is why when people always ask, who would win out of the Hulk or the Superman sort of questions, my answer, sardonic answer, is always the same, which is whoever's got the better comic sales.
Right.
Pretty obviously, that's what really determines superhero powers.
Yeah.
The power level inflates as they become more popular, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, there have been several instances where Batman has beaten Superman when he shouldn't have.
Right.
Although, at the very least, in Dark Knight Returns, he had help.
Well, but I mean, really be realistic here. It's all Batman needs to beat Superman right now is kryptonite, and he has kryptonite.
Oh, Tim Lynn's in chat.
He just goes up there and goes, "Here, see this?" Makes get Superman all week and can beat him.
Yeah, we are the cool people, Bunderdome. You don't have to look anywhere else. Promise. Michael Lighton, Brightburn was going to be a take on Superman. Kind of dropped the ball. Yeah, I don't know. Brightburn was interesting, I guess.
I haven't seen that yet.
It's worth a watch.
I saw that more as a parody of Smallville than the normal Superman, though.
Right.
Really?
They actually took a lot of beats from the first few seasons of Smallville out of that. But it was an odd film.
I
And
tell you
really,
what,
by the time they made it, I mean, again, it's just so trite again, though. Really, I mean, it's they got to move outside the comfort zone a bit more than something like Brightburn. I mean, saying how amazing it was, like they were trying to peep it with their controlled media reviews of it. I mean, it's all been done to death, really.
I've been liking Stargirl on Disney or not on CW. It's probably, to me, I think it's one of the best CW shows. It blows Flash away.
Really?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because they bring in they jump right in with like the Justice Society and it's because Jeff Johns is the one that's in charge of it and he wrote the character, so they're trying to stick pretty close to what he wrote.
You're not wrecking my character like you did all the others.
What was that?
You're not wrecking my character like you did all the others.
Oh.
But he has that family issue. Remember, the daughter or whatever it was had passed away. So
yeah, his sister.
So he's very protective of that particular character, and it comes out the same kind of way each time it's done because of that. Which, given the absolute annihilation they visit on all the other characters, it's a blessing, really. And it shows that they're deliberately going out of their way to warp everything else, because Stargirl shows that they can, in fact, do it in a more normal, approachable way, that they don't have to,
They don't have to make Arrow Batman.
No.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw Arrow and they introduced Roy, I sat there and said, why did they choose Malcolm Merlyn? They could have done Sportsmaster, right? And then Thea could have been Arrowette. And then they could have brought her Sportsmaster's other daughter and done Cheshire. And I'm like, there you have Roy and Cheshire would eventually hook up. You have Arrowette. And, I'm like, instead they decided to bring all the Batman characters in. It's like, what? You have like decent Green Arrow characters that you could have had a great run of a series with.
Yeah. Again, though, they don't seem to read the comics that they're actually adapting.
I mean,
And that means nobody
all
wrote
the
a
same.
continuity Bible for it.
Yeah.
Nobody wrote any kind of reference to use. They basically just plucked it and said, no, can't use Batman because reasons, so
Yeah.
crush it into being as close to Batman as you can.
They're all in the same universe, right? This'll work.
It's very odd when they prevent them from using so-called major characters like Batman. If they just
They
put a
find
little
some
more
way to
effort
bring him in
in,
there anyway.
well, you can make any superhero a Batman popular level sort of character. With the Batman animated series back in the day, and that took off, that went gangbusters. It caused Harley Quinn. That originally had a lot of similarities to Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man comics, in the way that the villains were introduced, the Halloween kind of vibe, and the way that the supporting cast became important.
Yes.
It wasn't just Batman wandering around alleys. It was actually all of these other characters that you started seeing and wanting to see again. That was much more like a Marvel comic or a Spider-Man comic. That's all they've really got to do. This is really not as complicated as they make it sound, or it's not as difficult as they make it look. It's because they're so saddled with other things that they want to do. Political things. It just warps it out of all recognition.
You heard that Henry Cavill's coming back to play Superman, right?
Yeah.
Run.
But he's not going to be doing a Superman 2 movie. And from what I understand, the movie that he signed up for is Black Adam versus Superman.
Oh goodness!
And I'm like,
are they going to have Dwayne Johnson play Black Adam?
Dwayne Johnson.
What?
Are they still going with The Rock for Black Adam?
Yes. Yep. But he's going to be fighting Henry Cavill.
Okay, I'll watch that. But the two characters, not as interesting.
Oh.
Yeah,
But the question is, will he have the mustache?
He's still wearing it.
My logic for a Black Adam film, they should have just done Black Adam, not even bring Cavill in as Superman. Have him start in ancient Egypt, have Hawkgirl and Hawkman back there, and they defeat him in ancient Egypt. And then you fast forward to the future, and Hawkman has amnesia. He's in a dig in Egypt as an archaeologist, and uncovers like ancient artifact of the Hawkman stuff, and becomes Hawkman. And during that, he releases Adam again. I'm like, you don't need to bring Superman into this. And I said,
of all characters to bring in Superman against a magic Superman,
exactly.
when one of his actual weaknesses is fucking magic,
and they're not
Black Adam's from ancient Egypt, which in the DC continuity is soaked with magic and sorcery.
Exactly.
So it's not even like Black Adam doesn't need magic fists. He just needs to go, now where did I leave that preternaturally sharp sword and that magic mace? Because then I'm just going to totally beat this guy to death, obviously.
Right. Well, and then they could have just I said they could even hint at bringing Blue Beetle in, because
you've got a whole mythology of DC Comics version of Egypt. So you could do this in so many beautiful ways, more like the Marvel Comics films did at their best.
Mm-hmm.
You just have a scene in Wonder Woman where she runs through a museum. She doesn't even have to stop and look at it, but you just have display cases in the Egypt wing, and you have all of your other Egypt characters. Because DC in particular, a bit the way Norse mythology was central to Silver Age Marvel, Golden Age DC is Tibet and ancient Egypt. Tibet, Egypt, Tibet, Egypt, Tibet, Egypt. So you could have a whole wing of a museum just with DC related stuff in it.
Yep.
And there you go. You've got all your plot threads for your future films. It's just, I don't know.
See, now you're thinking too much. WB can't do that.
No, they can't. That's why Marvel's sitting back laughing.
I mean, they can't even hire a guy to play Batman who will exercise. Because fit people don't exist in this reality.
That's why you have. That's why all the characters in Marvel are overweight now.
You remember in the early 2000s, it was Swimmer's Body was the big thing,
Mm-hmm.
where you had these kind of like lithe superheroes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so disappointing. Let's see. Pickles, you had another picture on here. Panda Deadpool. Did you want to talk about that, or do you want to move on?
Cool. Just a quick summary, I guess.
Sure.
Some book called Deadpool Kills Deadpool. It's just an evil Deadpool that's going to every universe killing Deadpools. Starts off with him killing Headpool. And Deadpool goes down and tracks him down and kills him himself. Pandapool is another version of Deadpool from a different universe.
So
And he's a
it's
panda.
one.
So it's kind of like Spider-Ham, except with Deadpool and another animal.
Well, it's more like the one
It's-
because
it-
he's going around killing all his alternate versions. They become more
Imagine it's
powerful.
like Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse, but it's Deadpool, a bunch of Deadpools killing a bunch of Deadpools.
Huh.
It's written by Cullen Bunn as well. I think it is kind of like a sequel to Deadpool Illustrated.
Illustrated?
Yeah, where there's a different universe where Deadpool goes inside famous books and whatever. And then, at the end of it, he's traveling the multiverse with, I think it's Sherlock Holmes, and Sherlock Holmes kicks him out of like this out of their, I think it was a boat or something like that in the multiverse. And I think that's where Deadpool Kills Deadpool kind of stems from. A quick summary, there we go.
Yeah. Let's see. And let's see who else we got. Zombie, you brought us something risque tonight.
I did. If you want to
All
turn
right,
to that.
you brought us Howard the Duck last week.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at porno. What's going on here?
Wicked Wonder, 1973 to 1980. If you can
Yep.
bring them up from the stream, maybe not. It's also a painted comic book. It was originally done as pages in the Penthouse pornographic magazine, and then it was collected as early as 1975 into graphic novels by Mullally and Embleton, I think his name is. So it was a writer-artist duo, political satire. The pictures I put on the thread on Twitter are safe for work.
Yes, please.
Cheesecakey,
Wanda.
but not. Yeah. So it was sexual. She had sex. Her offsider had sex with each other and all sorts of other men and women. But it was also political commentary and science fiction adventures, time travel, and things like that. So it's beautifully painted and good stories, really.
I've never heard of this.
Who was I forgot who the artist was on that stuff.
Embleton or Pembleton. Can't remember which. Let me just quickly check. The pictures are safe if you want to bring them up. They're not. Yeah. But I was always struck by the beauty of the artwork as much as anything. It's not sort of like particularly sexually satisfying as porn or whatever. It's more that you've got these lush paintings in that 70s post-hippie style.
Yeah.
Little bit Barbarella-y kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of famous historical figures and other people and so on. Ron Embleton.
Yep.
Member of the Royal Institute of Oil Painters. Did actual oil paintings which people bought and hung on their walls and so on. So somebody of that caliber doing a painted comic strip, that's of note, really.
Well, you missed the most important thing about her. She's a 19-year-old who was a man-hating lesbian.
What?
She lived in an old castle.
Well, she's a dom.
Yeah, she's
She subjugates men. She still has sex with men, but her main lover is her schoolgirl offsider or finishing schoolgirl offsider.
Oh.
And they put a lot of effort into the stories. You had a real writer and a real artist. So it was cheesecakey rather than sexually explicit. And he went through a lot of different artistic. It's all the same style because the same man painted it. But he went through a lot of artistic tropes, and there's chiaroscuro panels and all sorts of different depictions in it, which makes it really, really good. And it's an obvious influence on the Rocky Horror Picture Show, for example, and things like that. Came out before it.
And the style was very much popular around that time. Because I know Playboy had artists at the same type of caliber doing stuff like that.
Yeah. It's a long gone level of art now.
Yep.
For comics in general, really. But it's notable because she's anti-heroic, I suppose. She's a villain as much as a hero. But overall, you'd have to say she is a superhero. She fights for her own ethical code and so on. So it was just people wandering around outside to set the dog off, of course. So having set the dog off, they now walk up and down.
Yeah, it's like, whose dog is this?
It's my dog Freya. So I thought Wicked Wonder is worth having a look at. Obviously, sexy pictures, arguably, but also extremely skilled art. A coherent universe with its own continuity and characters, villains, heroes. The mummified corpse of her father in a glass case in their castle in Transylvania.
And how long did this thing run for?
It ran for 7 years. The artist burnt himself out, and so did the writer. They were hard-drinking, typical British commercial art, commercial writer types, and they burnt themselves out trying to keep pace with it once it got popular. So it was never to be repeated. Quite.
Yeah, I've never heard of this thing.
What?
It's similar to Little Annie Fanny for Playboy.
Yeah,
it's definitely more in the Wally Wood tradition. Definitely. But British made. So it's well worth looking at. There's nothing particularly horrible in terms of the sex or anything. It's actually sort of, I would say, really softcore.
Yeah. It's the 70s, DNA type stuff. Obviously naked and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not seeing gratuitous shots.
No. And some of the splash pages and the sort of action pages, well worth looking at. Beautiful, beautiful art. And because he's a proper oil painter, color composition, everything. This is not amateur night stuff in any way, shape, or form. And if you've never looked at it, it's worth looking at. Reading the whole thing, really, because there's a continuous story that runs through it. And it covers things like the presidential elections and the sort of political talk. Yeah, there's like satire and one-page comments and so on.
Yeah, he does a lot of caricatures of famous people and stuff. Like he's got Reagan when he was the governor and stuff, beating her and she beating up him, stuff like that.
And Teddy Kennedy, whenever you see him, he's dripping with water because of Chappaquiddick. Mm. It's like the equivalent of Lady Macbeth staying for him. He's always dripping with water from the flooded cart. He can never escape the consequences of the Chappaquiddick incident. So, like he's never going to get elected president because of that. And they sort of knew it. So, but there's some splash pages with everybody from Burt Reynolds to Henry Kissinger in them, for example. So if you like that sort of AAA class Mad Magazine splash pages in colour, it's definitely worth looking at for that.
Yeah, it's definitely provocative. It's
and different again.
You don't see this every day, and a lot of people. Yeah, I posted some just regular cape stuff. Kind of embarrassed to show what I brought today after seeing something as how do you say refined? Maybe is the word I'm looking for. Sophisticated. Yeah, I don't feel as sophisticated now. It's really interesting.
It'd be fun if one week we just tried to look between 1960 and 1970 or 1940 and 1950 for comics.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because there's some startling stuff if you just go by decade or by era. Like bloody hell. There's some amazing stuff, amazingly bad and amazingly good, even when you go all the way back.
Well, this show's intended to be just a celebration of comics. If that's the right way to celebrate them, then maybe we'll end up doing that, or even like a theme or maybe like a character specific night at some point.
Yeah.
I also thought about doing like a who would win kind of stream too, maybe on the weekend for goofiness. But there might be other people already doing that kind of thing, and I don't know, it might be interesting. But yeah,
I'm looking at pages now because you can get them online. Yeah, you're right. You see, he just throws Kennedy in there with a big number 76 on it, and
and she goes into an oil war situation between Israel and Jordan. She's crossing the demilitarized zone.
Right.
And there's another Dom. She meets an Arab Dom and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I find it enjoyable to read through, not for sexual satisfaction. I don't think any normal person would treat this as being sexually stimulative pornography. Really, I don't know.
Right,
But,
it's very Annie Fanny, little Annie Fanny. He's making light of the times with a story and with political humor. Yeah, it's definitely something I would put in my collection. Let's see if I can get a hardcover of his work.
There are other pictures I could have found. It was just going to take too long to find the ones that weren't, because there's lots of topless women more than full frontal. There's as many penises as there are.
Well, her car.
In fact, there's almost more. And of course, yes, her vehicles.
Her car looks like a penis. And so does the brain.
Really?
Yeah. It's got two big wheels in the back.
Yes.
Jeez, have you seen Disney's Little Mermaid? Poster?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we did I kind of believe on that topic a while ago.
Yeah, there are lots of cocks in Disney. Lots and lots of cocks.
Wow.
Yeah, there is.
He's even a pogo in. Cool.
It's like a cock apocalypse.
Yep.
All right. Well, at the risk of sounding like an idiot, I'm going to bring up what I brought. I feel kind of silly and childish doing so after that presentation from Zombie and that thing. But this is a panel from my favorite run on Thor from Jason Aaron. He's been somewhat topical and relevant lately because he led into the Jane Foster Thor arc, which is going to be taking center stage in Thor 4 whenever that comes out. Part of the reason I love this story so much is there's just so much beautiful imagery. And one of the things I love about comics is you could do shots like this, Thor hanging out on the moon all damn day in a comic as long as your artist is willing to do it. Right. Whereas in a movie, you maybe get like a minute or two of the special effects, CGI laden stuff, all that kind of nonsense. So that was like one of the things I get into with my enjoyment of this series. There's I couldn't find the exact panel. I'll probably show it another time, but there's one part where he's just looking at this like big dead dragon thing, and it's just this splash page of the horizon. I couldn't be more excited about it. When I saw that, I fell in love with the damn book. But this scene in particular is Thor hanging out with Jane Foster. She's suffering from cancer. This is before Thor became unworthy. And this whole run leads up to a confrontation with a character called Gorr the God Butcher, which is this guy right here. His story is he hates gods, and he goes hunting a bunch of gods throughout whatever pantheons, like the god of the hunt and everything. And Thor makes it his mission to go find him. And he runs into like two other versions of himself. One is like old King Thor from the future. One I think is like a younger one. And it's his battle with Gorr that becomes where I guess it was Gorr was right, was what triggered Thor to lose his capability of wielding Mjolnir, which I think is kind of where it shitted it up. But this whole run before all that is just one of my most imaginative places to be in a comic book. I can't gush about this thing enough. If you haven't read it, it's the 2013 was when it started, I believe.
And he's supposed to be the main villain in the new Thor film.
Yeah, and he's an excellent villain. He's just somebody that really hates gods. I'll do a little spoilers here. Towards the end, somebody close to him points out to him that with all his successes, he's become something of a god himself. And that in the vein of the character, he says, "Oh hell no! I'm basically kills that person. He couldn't handle that thought, even though they had been, his love previous to that. And he was just some like random alien dude. And I think he picked up this weapon, the God Sword or something like that.
Necroblade, I think it was called.
The Necroblet?
The Necroblade.
Necroblade, yeah. And it's just like really good Thor stuff. I mean, Thor's in charge. He struggles throughout it. There's just, I don't know who the artist was. I can't remember, but he's got so many evocative panels throughout this whole thing, and just it really takes me to another place. So if you guys haven't read that, I couldn't recommend it enough. I don't know if anybody else on the panel has read through this one.
No,
I've only ever seen images from it. Never actually read it.
Yeah, it's see if I could pull some up real quick. But Thor is like the quintessential, muscular, masculine kind of heroic dude, and it's just such a shame that they, took his hammer away and gave it to his girlfriend. Yeah, and this is probably the last, great Thor thing we had before all the SJW politics came in.
I'm stunned. I mean, obviously, they need a small, troll-faced brown girl who's the key to everything. I'm stunned that either that or a black man has not become Thor yet.
Well, pretty much every other character, has.
Well, with Thor having the Captain Marvel-style transformation power, you could actually do it more sensibly than most other superheroes that've done it too.
Yeah. A Space Force somehow gets to wield Mjolnir, but a black guy can't.
Well,
Storm carried the hammer around for a while.
Oh,
Is she?
For a couple issues.
Oh yeah.
She became an Asgardian goddess way back.
Yeah.
That was another one of the, because Chris Claremont loves doing this. He has these strong women.
Mm-hmm.
He does it out of love for sexy women though. So somehow it just works better because he builds them up and they get their big speech and they humble Dr. Doom or something, and they've got mutant powers because he used to write the X-Men for so long. So it's usually, Storm having a claustrophobic fit and then freaking out and using, cosmic level storm powers to humble Dr. Doom in his own castle. So you went with it and it was okay. But one would have thought if you wanted to really deconstruct Thor, just have somebody pick up a wooden walking stick in an alley to defend themselves, accidentally hit the ground, and then a small but somehow impossibly wise and moral brown child becomes Thor. So, complete with cornrow version of the long hair. And I don't know, it would just seem so obvious that they do it, but they don't, do they? It's all so concerted and engineered, the way that they deconstruct these characters. In fact, not really deconstruct, violate and destroy them, that they wouldn't even do it. It's just crazy. And as you say, a Space Force is worthy, but some random black guy isn't. There's no Jon Stewart equivalent for Thor. There's no,
Well,
it's odd to say the least.
This is the panel I was talking about. Just the scale of this thing, Thor, his pose, it's very minuscule, but like this is what I'm looking for in comic book art. Not every time, not every page, but this thing set my imagination on fire when I saw it.
Was it ever collected?
I don't know. I think I looked for it on Amazon, and it looked like a pretty hefty proposition, actually. But
Thor, God of Thunder, Volume 1, The God Butcher.
The God Butcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a complete story?
Let me see. I'm looking at it right now. I want to see what issues it details.
I think the Necro sword ties into the new Venom run.
Does it?
Yeah, because apparently the god of the symbiotes who created the symbiotes, they came from his sword, which was the Necro sword.
Which makes sense because Donny Cates just got off of Venom and went to Thor.
It's 11 issues.
11 issues?
That's just the volume one collects.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a good amount of reading right there.
Does it have quotable quotes, or is it more the images that you like?
Just, I don't know. The writing's good. The art is, I'd say the art's 10/10 and the writing's like 8/10 for me. It's been about 2 years since I've read it. I'm gonna have to go through the whole thing again.
You own all the individual issues.
It has a very digital painted style to it.
Yeah,
Well, that's beautiful.
When,
That
when
one's
they're,
very
when
beautiful.
they're,
I
when they're
like
not
that.
using a lot of black outline. It's a subtler black outline on the on the pages.
yeah, I could look at this thing all day, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if you haven't checked that out, it's good. It's good.
It's a small picture, so I can't tell, but it looks a little bit Mobius-like too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like
those
outer
alien
space
systems.
kind of globe trotting and space kind of deal. Yeah, I wish I could sum it up better, but if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's probably going to be the subject of Thor 4, the movie. I think Christian Bale's rumored to play the bad guy.
Which is interesting because he's actually what the character's called the God Butcher. Is it Gore God Butcher?
Yeah.
And since they're projecting to have Beta Ray Bill in it, I wonder if they're gonna morph God Butcher to be similar to like one of Beta Ray Bill's race.
Oh, yeah, that might work. I think it looks cool enough as it is, but I mean, whatever works for the movie continuity, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yes, I live near dirt bike racers. I apologize.
Yeah. We've already heard dogs barking on this stream.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah. But yeah, so this show is basically just talking comics and stuff. We've gone for an hour and a half. We didn't delve too much into politics at all, except where it was relevant to the stories. And I think we might be the only channel, only show in our community that's actually just having a stream dedicated to comics. And it feels like we're kind of rebels and outlaws for that. But I love it, and I'm learning a lot from you guys. You guys are so informed on this stuff. I only started reading comics in 2010, so just hearing you guys talk about this stuff and getting some homework to go read certain things is really exciting to me. And I
I always hope that indie comics, especially now, I always hoped indie comics would provide more variety, really. Like with these favourites people have brought so far, just in a couple of weeks. It would be nice to see indies try and go for it, really. But I don't know.
Well,
maybe they lack the confidence.
I kind of noticed that with like in the whole the Comicsgate community, that they all seem to be the same style books. They're all they weren't a variety of them.
Yeah, they all have. Yeah, they all seem to favor that '90s image flavor, which. But not even that. It's just okay if you're in that kind of thing, but
right. But even the fact that they say they're all into superheroes, but I'm like, they really haven't written like superhero books. It's been all kind of magic or monster.
H.P. Lovecraft.
I mean, right? Yeah.
I mean, the only ones that's really come close, the only ones that come close to that were probably Lone Star and Jawbreakers.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of, but I mean, the splash pages tend to be action set pieces of a certain kind, rather than an alien vista or a cityscape or the close-up of a face or, and if you look at the comics people have brought forward so far, there's at least one page which is inspiring, like the ones that have just been shared now, with Thor dwarfed by that huge alien vista and that creature in the background. If you're an indie, you're completely free. You've got no editorial control, for better or worse. So you could paint a whole comic if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yep.
You could do a blacklight comic.
I just hope some people do. I hope they do.
Long live the revolution!
Long live the big two. I'll never give up Thor and Spider-Man and Batman for Cyberfrog and the Jawbreakers.
You see, back in the day, like the Roy Thomas era, Stan Lee gone to the West Coast, all those Marvel guys all had a favourite indie comic book. In fact, some of them were rooming or living with the guys doing the indie books. So there was never a desire to extinguish all life outside the collective.
Right.
I think that's more a side effect of Disney and whoever the hell owns Warner Brothers now. They want to assimilate everything, and they don't like indies because the indies are a different voice. That the mere existence of indies is now a political statement. It's a criticism of corporatist comic books. So the fact indies exist, it's like Sanctuary and Logan's Run. It's something people can run to, reject them with. And it's been marketed as that by certain shrewd people as well, hasn't it? Even though it's, more or less not true yet. So I would just love to see, there's one guy on Indie Planet who's doing a Mobius-style comic with no words at all, just Mobius-style pictures. And there's quite a lot of caped superheroes. And Dan Sane, who's somebody I'd love McCheese to interview at some point, he did Red Rooster and Pink Puma. He's doing actual cape comics.
Mm-hmm.
So there are indies who do it.
Yep.
But it's just strange to see this addiction to 1998.
Yeah.
As though somehow that was a seminal year in comics, and it really wasn't. It was the year that Marvel was trading while insolvent. I mean, I don't understand the preoccupation. Maybe it's just the age of the people. I don't know. But there's so much more out there.
Yep.
There really is. We haven't even touched on Tintin, Lucky Luke, Spiro. Yeah, Pogo. Oh, Wally Wood. From the porny softcore sort of stuff to the just extreme skill, unbelievable skill. Or of course,
Prince
the
Valiant.
original Flash Gordon. Yep, Prince Valiant and Flash Gordon.
Those amazing artwork of just the detail that they would put in for, and most of that stuff was just for newsprint.
On a relentless schedule.
Yeah.
Merciless schedule. Yeah. Yeah. No panels, no pay for a lot of them, so they had to get it out. And Prince Valiant influenced Jack Kirby's Thor to a huge extent.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, guys, that's Spinner Rack issue 2. Went ahead and called it issue 2 for the comic book reference. I feel silly
We should get
out.
artwork for this. We should really have a Spinner Rack front cover or something.
Yeah, that'd be fun. If anyone wants to do that, let me know. Somebody was talking about doing a Facebook group too.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a
we should do
good.
that.
Yeah, for people who don't have Twitters.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
There's a lot of comic book groups on there, and I get invited to them all the time.
Yeah,
And you wouldn't need a lot of them to participate to actually end up with a much bigger audience and quite a different composition audience too.
Hell, even I've got a Facebook group for the Needle Mover Society that I never pay attention to, but apparently there's like 100+ active members on there.
Well, there you go.
I thought that Move the Needle hashtag has been dead since 2018.
It's not dead with me. I still support comics, bro. Save the comics.
What's kind of funny because I was doing the Move the Needle thing before it became a hashtag.
Yeah, it's always been about that, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get into it because this is going into something that is
I know.
better for
I
me.
wasn't trying to.
But yeah, Move the Needle has always been a beautiful thing. Like, I don't know. I love supporting cool stuff. Like we're talking about comics that we love right now. Go out and buy these comics if you think they're cool, but don't get them on Amazon. Fuck Bezos. He supports like Antifa and the riots and shit. Go to your local comic shop.
There you go.
I just never understood with Move the Needle with Maya. Once again, he appropriated something other people were doing, but also his idea of Move the Needle involved buying from the same 4 larger comic book companies and blatantly ignoring all the people on Indie Planet and all the webcomics. So I thought that was a really interesting way to try and move the needle by not actually moving it at all.
Well, I think in his mind it was to try to use sales to influence the kind of books that they're putting out as a way to say, hey, these writers are actually doing good, not political propaganda bullshit. God, I just think it was more hypocritical than that. He wanted to keep buying Marvel and DC, and he kept buying
going to the extent. going to the extent of even supporting the people that he criticized. It just seems weird. I think this.
Strange.
I think the spinner rack thing is much better. It's much broader, much more Catholic inclusive.
Much more honest.
I mean, I really hate Diet Mountain Dew, but you don't see me constantly going out and buying Diet Mountain Dew all the time.
Right.
Bitching about it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we don't want to worry about that too much. We're just celebrating the comics we love here.
Yeah. There's another show for bedtime.
Plenty of other shows like that over here in our YouTube sphere. But thanks to everybody for coming. We're going to wrap up. Anybody want to promote anything or shout out before we go?
Nope, I don't have anything.
I'd like to promote Vestry.
Okay.
That's coming out.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, actually. I think they're looking to launch as soon as Lone Wolf fulfills, I believe, Pickles. Am I right?
Well, Lone Wolf is fulfilling soon, so it should be launching by the time, that it gets sent out.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Because
I
think Shabby's nearly done the sketch cards, and he's going to send them to Doug. Then we're going to do the launch.
And speaking of Lone Wolf, I believe Legends, I think Doug still has a couple of the Kickstarter copies for sale on the Indiegogo before he closes it officially. Yeah. I think last time he said he had like 16 copies left.
There you go. And you got Otis Stein coming out soon.
Yeah, but that'll be after Vestry. The important thing right now is Vestry.
Yeah. Well, all right, guys. Thanks for coming. Please give us some feedback on.
Go ahead. What is Vestry? What is Vestry?
Vestry, that's Pickles right here.
No, but what is it? What's it about?
Vestry, Pickles, go ahead with a pitch, man.
Okay, off the bat. It's a fantasy, right? A barbarian who gets hired by a steward to the king to deal with stuff that he doesn't want his men to deal with, and he sends him to an island called Umbridel. Basically, and we're going to explore Damon's history with this particular island, with an actual story as well.
Right.
And a genre mix, I would say, is between fantasy and maybe like cosmic horror.
Cosmic horror fantasy on a barbarian's tale of cutting people up with an axe.
I'm sorry if that's not very good. It's like 4 a.m. here.
Yeah. The artwork looks great. Shabby's a hell of an artist, and you got some cool story going on. And I'll bring you on to promote that on another episode. But we're going to go ahead and call it a night, guys. Thank you so much for being here for issue 2 of the Spinner Rack. And we'll see you guys later.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Later.